ladies, gentlemen, and everyone in between. Welcome. Hello. My name is Faye with an E, and you are watching or listening to The Chronic Creative, a show about healing through affirming creativity and mindful making. Boom! Today, we are going to be looking at the alphabet superset for the first time. If you don't know what that is, I will give you a little overview in just a second. We're going to be seeing what that is, why I'm doing it, doing our first prompt of it, as well as as well as kind of giving a little backstory to my theme, a little context as to why I picked my overall theme, and then we'll kind of go into what the weekly theme is, yada yada. Without further ado, grab a drink-a-doodle-doo, I got my tea, and sit back and watch the elucidation ensue. I'm excited. I've been wanting to do like a podcast style thing for a while, and honestly just get back to creating content that I enjoy and like I feel passionate about, and this definitely feels like a step in that direction, so I'm very excited.
Isn't this great? This is from the Dollar Tree, by the way. I got it like 2 years ago when I was living with Greg's parents, and they dropped off a bunch of stuff last time they visited us, and I was like, oh my gosh, skeleton tongs. And of course I'm going to use it as a microphone stand. I got not an acapella mic, a lapel mic. And it was on sale. I should be wearing my glasses or make this bigger. It's fine. We got this. No, set myself up for success. Good. This is good. This is so creepy, Faye. There's no way to avoid what's in the body. We either pay attention to it or we suffer the consequences. So, I struggled with negative emotions for a really long time. I thought having them was really bad, let alone showing them. So I would bottle them up or push them down, kind of numb them out as much as I could, and they would just build up and up and up until I would explode at the tiniest thing, like a Mento into a Diet Coke. Paint that nice mental picture for you. I loved that. Did you guys do that as a kid? Was that just a weird church thing that we did at VBS? I don't know. Comment below if you've ever done that, or if you're listening to this, then I guess you can't comment. But yeah, have you ever done the Mentos and Diet Coke thing? That was basically me emotionally. I would just bottle it up and up and up until like I could blow up at the smallest thing. One time I remember I cried because I opened the cupboard and a bag of croutons fell out, and I was like, whoa. After doing that for a really long time, most of my life, I had an existential crisis at the ripe age of 23, which left me unable to get out of bed, much less work or continue working my job in a kitchen that I was working. So I ended up going on health leave. Fast forward, when I finally received my diagnosis of anxiety, depression, and borderline personality disorder, which I'm going to refer to as BPD from here on out if I do refer to it. Alongside my formerly mentioned diagnosis, I also received a referral to a weekly DBT group. So it's not the full, like, intense DBT that has, as we all know, or as most of us know, has a very long waiting list. It's, as someone today in my group actually referred to, they were like, it's criminal. Like, yeah, honestly. It's horrible how long some of these people have to wait. It just reminded me of the time that, not this Rogers outage, because obviously it happened again, but last year, the year before, I was like not doing good, and I was like debating calling like the suicide hotline, and then the Rogers outage happened. But it's okay, I got credited like 90 cents. Thanks, Rogers. Oh man. Anyway. So, fuck man, that's fucked up. Should I trigger warning that? I don't even know. Received a referral to a DBT group though, that's like a weekly one, that's an online hosted one through a local hospital, St. Joseph's. Shout out to St. Joe's, you guys rock. On like the first week there or something, they asked us a question that literally was like, oh my gosh, I really need to be here. And it was, I have to read my note. I'm so sorry about my voice, by the way. How can you change something when you have no idea what it is you're supposed to be changing? How do you do that? And that was like, oh my gosh, that's incredible. And they used that
for an example for like emotional intelligence and why it's important to identify our emotions or like what we're feeling or what we were feeling, right? Because it can help us like our emotions communicate to us. Like they help communicate to us, they help communicate to others, and they help like convey important information, right? They're very important things. It's kind of like a check engine light or like a little update notification if you've seen my update video about how much I don't like updating my computer.
The power to transform our reality from one of attempting to outrun or hide from the chaos around us to one that we understand and accept it for what it is begins with learning to observe and describe. If you are familiar with the Serenity Prayer, like in there, they ask for the power to change the things we can, and I think the serenity to accept the things we cannot. The power to change the things you can and accept the things you cannot starts with asking yourself a simple yet underrated question. How am I feeling right now? I want to do a quick little thought experiment, and I hope you'll participate with me, but I understand if not. But if you do, gold star. There's no punishment if you don't do it. Close your eyes and take a breath, and I'm going to give you the instructions, and I want you to follow them to the best of your abilities. Okay? Whatever you do, do not think of a pink polar bear. I said no. Are you thinking of a pink polar bear? I would assume so, because if you're not, you're lying. You're supposed to fail because, like, it's pretty impossible to do. It's pretty impossible to not think about something when you're told not to think about it. And the more you try not to think about it, the more you're thinking about it, and it just continues on like that. It's paradox. It's a loop. It's boop, 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 boop. Imagine instead of a pink polar bear, though, it's an ambiguous emotion or like a feeling. It's like, hey, don't think about how you're feeling right now. And it's like, okay, cool. If you don't know, then all you're doing is thinking about how you're currently feeling and how you want to not feel that way. And you're just going to continually think about how to not feel that way, but like you don't know how you're feeling and you just know it's that way and you know you don't want to feel that way.
Welcome to science, bitch. Nothing is ever given to you straight.
You need to identify and name it before you can change it. Otherwise, you're just focusing on what you're feeling and how you don't want to feel it. Our body is trying to communicate important messages through our feelings, thoughts, sensations, and intuitions we experience. It's a check engine light of our mental well-being and state of mind. And without checking to identify if and what needs tending to, we're just gonna let it run blinking and our car's just gonna go kaput someday. We don't want that to happen to us. That would be horrible. Oh, it does happen to us. It happened to me. I think I shared at the beginning, I had an existential crisis at 23 that lasted quite a long time, a couple years, and it was because I just ignored all my check engine lights and my update needed, and like, right? I was so out of date and so in need of repair and rest and just like all this stuff, and I just kaboom. When people give themselves permission to find whatever it is they find difficult, even if it's subjectively far more simple than all the things they manage to do every day, something extraordinary happens. That's kind of like we're giving ourselves permission to just feel how we feel, regardless of what it is. It's, hey, yeah, I'm allowed to feel this way. This is valid. I always say to like everyone around me, like when we're talking about stuff or like about feelings or like personal experiences, like, yeah, that is a valid experience to have. That's a valid feeling to have. Whatever you're feeling is valid because you're feeling it and it's there for a reason. It's there to communicate something to you, whether it's something you need to do externally or internally or something that needs attention. It's an incredibly powerful thing to learn how to listen to the messages your body is sending you through your emotions. As Tara Brach says in Radical Acceptance, learning to be present in our own pain helps open up to the pain of others. Learning to observe and describe the facts of the present moment without evaluation, judgment, and adding our own narrative is the first step in learning how to do that. As humans, we're really prone to being biased. Our egos, like, one of their main goals is like self-preservation and survival, right? There's a really good quote, actually, hold on, an article about consciousness and Carl Jung's view on consciousness. Jung compared the nature of consciousness to the eye. Only a limited number of things can be held in vision at any one time. And in the same way, the activity of the consciousness is selective. Selection, he says, demands direction, and other things are excluded as irrelevant. This is bound to make conscious orientation one-sided. We're focusing on us, right? We're focusing on our experiences, what's going on around us, inside us, but like our experience, and like without intentionally tuning in and paying attention to what's going on around you and like other things, we are very, very prone to just be completely biased to ourselves, or to be completely one-sided, as he says, or as Jung says, or as Hopwood says. I know I've been talking about this a lot, but that's essentially why I'm doing this, and why I think like learning about our emotions and learning about like, right, doing our inner work, like maintaining your car. There we go. You should do stuff when lights go off or when it makes noises, or if you just ignore it, it's gonna not be a good thing. So yeah.
In light of all of that and the struggles I've had over the years with emotional intensity, I've decided to pursue negative emotions as my overall theme for the alphabet superset. Now, you may be asking me, Faye, what the heck is an alphabet superset? And you would be within every right to know that. If you already know, like you might, if you're watching this video, I feel like you already know what it is because like it's in the title, and so that's probably how you found it. But also, I'm not gonna try and assume and make an ass out of you and me. So, you know, if you don't know what the alphabet superset is, I can give you just a little bit of a rundown. 26 weeks, each one correlating with the letter of the alphabet, one main theme, so one overall theme, and then 26 tiny themes based on the corresponding letter of the week. Everything else, the medium, style, method, whatever like that you're doing, stays the same. You set that scope. That's one of the first things you do. If you want more of an explanation than that, you can go click the link in my bio or up here somewhere and watch the original video by Struthless. I'll be here when you get back. Otherwise, let's get into this. The story of the rabbit and the hare. Nope. Really good. That is the story of the tortoise and the hare. There we go. The hare is the fastest animal in the valley, and he won't let anyone forget it because he's just like taunting them and like, I'm so fast, look at me, woohoo. And he's even like to the turtle, like, yo, how do you ever get anywhere? You're so slow, I bet you never get anywhere. Right? And the turtle remains unabashed, which means she refuses to be embarrassed or made ashamed for functioning as she does as a tortoise. And so eventually the tortoise is like, yeah, no, I get from point A to point B, so like it's cool. But one day she's like, yo, okay, you know what, let's have a race. I can show you I can get from point A to point B. And the hare is like, oh baby, yes, he's been waiting for this. He's like, I finally got a reaction out of this tortoise. I'm gonna embarrass her so much. And his goal is to abash the tortoise, the verb, in like the act of embarrassing an individual through shame, right? So he's gonna make her feel ashamed for even trying to race him, like, and like, ha ha ha. So they get, usually in the story it's a fox, sometimes it's been a mole, but usually it's a fox who consents to judge the race, and he'll set out the starting line and the finish line, and he'll do the ready, set, go, and the rabbit goes off and leaves the tortoise behind in the dust. But the tortoise remains unabashed and just goes forward one step at a time, and like do 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 do. The rabbit's far gone, right? And he gets to like near the end of the course, and he's like, oh man, you know what would be hilarious if I just took a nap? That would be really funny. Then I could be all refreshed when I run in and like make fun of the tortoise for still not winning, even though I took a nap. So he finds a spot and he curls up and he's like, right? And then so the tortoise is just strutting along, do, probably enjoying the day, and it passes by the hare and like passes the finish line, and everyone's like, woohoo, go tortoise. And the rabbit wakes up and sees like the tortoise heading for the finish line and is like, oh shit, and like bolts, but doesn't beat her. Like literally like
the tortoise beats the hare. So I wanted to make sure I got the story right, so I was rereading it online, and I saw that in, I don't know, some time ago, there was a rendition of it where it's like the true story of the tortoise and the hare, where the tortoise suggests the race to the hare, and the hare is like, sees through and is like, no, that's dumb, I'm not gonna race you. But the tortoise just does the race anyway, gets declared the winner, and the hare is like, that's stupid. And then there's a big fire. And the reason that nobody knows this version of the tortoise and the hare is because there's a big fire, and the animals that were present for the race gather to discuss who should go warn the animals in the area that the fire's headed to about the fire, because they can see it because they're up on a hill. And they decide to send the fastest animal, who's the tortoise. That's why no one knows this version of the story, because everyone died because the tortoise did not get there in time. Get back to the point, Faye. For my overall theme of negative emotions for week 1, the letter A, I picked abashment, the emotional state of being made self-consciously uncomfortable and ashamed. The tortoise and the hare is a really good example of like the state of abashment, especially for the use of it, because a couple of the resources I was looking at were saying that like what distinguishes abashment from like embarrassment is that there is like a presumed context of arrogance or like confidence. There we go. A presumed air of confidence or like in the person before they're abashed or before the attempt to abash. The tortoise beats the hare, and he's abashed. He is self-consciously uncomfortable and ashamed and knocked down off of his high horse, because he obviously could have beat the tortoise if he had just done the race normally, but because of his pride and his arrogance, he lost the race. To be doing continuous line drawings, not necessarily contour drawings, but I do a little like mindfulness meditation before, kind of get in my body, and like I pray just because that's me, and I try and kind of like get myself in the mindset of either a situation I have been in that where I felt abashed, or I attempted to abash someone or abashed myself, right? Just try and get myself in that state of remembering that experience, how my body felt, and then finally putting down the pen to the paper and just going. And the aim is to use one continuous line. I have pretty bad carpal tunnel in my wrists, so I wasn't able to just go continuously, but whenever I pick up my pen, I try and put it back down where I left off. Most of the time I am able to keep track of it, but there's like some points if I end up on a scribble or something, like it's like, okay, or it's in like a scribbly zone, I gotta kind of try and guess. But I do, for the most part, do a continuous liner. Like the method is one that I learned in high school from my art teacher, Miss Smith. She called it something like this, but I don't remember exactly what it was, so I call it the buzzing bee method. This was what we did for observation drawing, is you imagine a buzzing bee, right? You imagine a little bee, and whatever you're focusing on to draw, you imagine the bee there, and wherever you put your pencil down, like wherever you decide to start drawing, the bee's there. And a bee, as it like goes around to inspect something, it bumbles slowly right along. It's not like like, because we tend to speed up when we're drawing, and it was a way to kind of help you slow down, but also visualize like you're tracing the person or the object, whatever you're drawing, with your eyes, which was really helpful for me, again, as someone with ADHD, and just it helps me visualize and follow. So I imagine the little bee, right, and then bzz along. And again, so if you're drawing someone or something, you're going along like, oh, and where the bee wanders, that's where your pencil goes, but you also want to keep it going smooth and steady, like the same pace. And so I often find that I will find myself speeding up, right, and like kind of lose my mindfulness. But when I find that, I just kind of like bring myself back like you would a puppy, or like kind of an elderly person if you were caring for someone who like maybe was like with dementia or Alzheimer's and you found them wandering off. You'd be like, all right, come on back this way, Meredith. Like, so I kind of like that. And like, oh, come on this way, friend. Like, let's go on back. So I kind of imagine my bee flying on back slowly to wherever it was, or if I'm somewhere on the thing with my eyes, like I just guide my attention back to the bee and like the speed that I'm going at, if that makes sense. If anyone needs clarification, please feel free to ask me. You can comment, or like you can leave your questions in the comments or message me or another thing I did with this is, I think something I want to try and do for this, the alphabet superset, is try and use the letter of the week to compose the image I'm doing. So I did use the letter A. I don't know if you'll be able to see it in the time lapse, but I did a grid. I also did a 1/2 inch border around it, which I definitely went over, but that way it makes it easier to crop it and I can mat it or something if I ever need to. I ended up doing a grid and then did the letter A here, right? And then I also did a flow line of S through there. I like to do I don't remember what the technical term is, but I call it the S curve because I found this really good reference or like pamphlet. I don't even know what to call it on Pinterest, but it was called Where Does the Cow Go? And it's about composition. And it was like, oh. Anyway, so I love the S curve. That's my favorite flow or visual flow composition thing. I don't. For now, I can just describe it to you. It's a woman who's kind of like hunched over in the middle. Her shoulders are hunched, and the spotlight's kind of on her. There's ambiguous eyes kind of like around her in a kitchen, which is with a hood kind of looming over her, and a broken clock that to me kind of looks like another eye. It kind of looks like a dragon eye, and then a tile floor. If you can, go check that out on Instagram. You can find the link in my bio or in the show notes, I think. I don't know. Yeah, so I did the A there, and I ended up kind of using that to kind of make like a spotlight almost, because when you're abashed, you're like really self-conscious and uncomfortable and like feel ashamed. But so when I'm in that state, I feel like everyone, like all eyes on me, kind of like that Bo Burnham song. And then I ended up kind of creating, it's kind of like a kitchen. It's kind of a rendition of the kitchen that I lived in Barrie, but distorted, because like that's also part of like memories, and our perception is it can be very easily distorted, right? So that's definitely part of it, but I definitely had the focus of in here spotlight in the woman who is based off of me, but like again just kind of made from flow and like hunched up because you're down, and like it to me, I don't honestly know because I didn't do it intentionally, right? I focus more on the line and like following the line and being mindful of where I am drawing at the moment, and not so much what I'm creating, but sometimes I do think about it. But it's kind of ambiguous to me whether she's like holding herself or if she's covering her face or if that's the shadow, which I kind of really like about it. And this is kind of the kitchen hood in my kitchen that, again, it's much bigger than it really was, but it's also kind of, a lot of kitchens have hoods, especially if you're working in the culinary industry or in the service industry. And my partner actually said this piece reminded him of what it felt like working in the service industry or working in a kitchen. And I was like, oh, and I got him to kind of like, because he was like, oh, I really like this, like it's like the clock's kind of he was like, though, this clock's like ambiguously broken, so you don't know what time it is, like it could be this time or this time. He's like, everyone's watching you, and like, right, and it's just so intense. And I was like, oh, I see, he's a smart guy, I love him. What a nerd. Which is awesome because we both actually worked in kitchen by trade, so that's dope. We didn't meet in kitchens, but that was definitely a bonding thing. So it was cool because that wasn't my thought process in it, but it was so cool that he was able to see that. And I love that. And I would love to hear your interpretation of what you see in this as well. Whether you leave a comment here or you can go to my Instagram and comment, the Elucidation Nation. Or, yeah, I would love to hear what you think about it. Or if you have any critiques or, constructive criticism, or if you have anything that stands out to you, or like, I'd love to know what the vibe it gives you. There we go. I think I have talked plenty. Thank you so much for tuning in for my first attempt at a podcast/video for the Alphabet Superset, which I'm going to name this series Alphabet Surprise because I cannot for the life of me. Every time I have to say it, I have to tell myself not to say Alphabet Surprise. So I'm just going to call this series Alphabet Surprise. So thank you for tuning in for the first episode of Alphabet Surprise. You can find me on Instagram, YouTube, maybe Twitter, I think, and I think Facebook, but you can find me there at FayewithanE, Elucidation Nation. You can check out my Redbubble for stickers, and I might have some shirts on there, but I think it's mostly just stickers. You can check out my Redbubble for stickers if you're tuning in to the ramblings of a chronically creative, unstable lady who is just trying to learn how to grow and live day by day, being the best I can. I am super stoked to be doing this, and I am a little about this week. I was on vacation. I didn't get the video done before I went on vacation, so it needs to be done now. I did get the picture out, which is the main thing, and did make a post, but here we are. So I'm a little boop. That's all for now. Safe journeys, make good choices, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye.